Welcome to the Higher Revolution podcast. I'm your host, Eve Nasby, and we are here today with an innovative, energetic, genuine human resources professional, Rachelle Snook. She originates from Perth, Western Australia, and she's the Global Talent Director at the WD40 Company. Rachelle serves there as an advisor and service provider to global leaders in all aspects of talent, organizational design, and she supports long-term business strategies, career progression, workforce planning, talent development, talent acquisition, and job design. And to add to her frequent flyer miles, she's the corporate HR partner for the company's Asia Pacific trading bloc. She's also a Navy veteran spouse. She's got a passion to help veterans and military folks in transition, and she wants to help them succeed. She's served on innumerable panels, TV shows, and radio shows focused on helping companies understand how to hire great military talent and helping veterans and veteran spouses succeed at work. She has served on advisory panels for LinkedIn, the U.S. Chamber, and more. As you can see, we are humbled by her presence with us today on the Higher Revolution. Welcome, Rachelle. It's good to have you here.
Thanks so much. It's my pleasure to be here. Thanks.
Yes. So the purpose of this podcast is to educate and inspire HR leaders with information around best practices with human resources within the human resources world as it continues to evolve. Today, we will be discussing remote work and employee engagement. So Rachelle, at the date of this taping, there are over 40 million Americans on unemployment. Companies are still hiring, and remote work is proving to be an efficient way to get work done. So share with us your thoughts about this emerging trend of remote work.
Yeah, thanks, Eve. We're pivoting as fast as we can. And it's not just WD40 Company. I think a lot of leaders and HR practitioners are in a very new space. We haven't seen this before. We're getting creative, innovative with our technology, with our tools, especially with our communication. We're having to find new ways of doing things. Not to mention the inevitable policies that need to be created and written. Right. But there's a lot of change for a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure. So what sort of changes are you seeing? What are some of the most significant things that you're seeing right now?
I describe it as what we used to have as the 3D experience, right? That we would meet with our colleagues and our customers in person. Well, the third dimension is no longer possible for many people.
Right.
That two-dimensional experience that we're having with one another is great when we have equity built up in our relationships and with our customers that we can draw upon, and we're having to cash in on that equity that we've established over the years, and replace the third dimension to some degree. We won't get there fully because there's nothing, in my opinion, that will replace the in-person experience. But we're having to over-communicate. We're finding new ways to acknowledge one another, new ways to connect. I know in conversations I've had with a lot of my colleagues, things are being more highly scheduled. You know, the water cooler's not available, the drop-in, those kind of collision conversations are not possible. And maybe they should be. Maybe we should be more intentional with how we communicate and how we make efforts to replace that third dimensional connection with one another.
So what are you losing without those collision conversations within the organization?
Yeah, I think it's just what are you working on? What am I working on? Oh, I didn't know that was happening in the business. How can I support? People are more focused in the areas that they're working on and perhaps not necessarily reaching out to colleagues like they may have in the past. I assume, because we don't know, a lot of missed opportunities for on-the-spot problem solving, for, I have a resource for you, or you might want to talk to Dave because I know he encountered that last week. We're missing some of these conversations and trying to find ways to replace them.
So the innovation piece too, when you're colliding like that, you spark ideas. And so to be purposeful about enabling that and engaging that in the remote arena, the 2D arena, can be challenging. I can see that. So we talked before about treating people like adults and empowering them. Can you speak a little bit more about that in this remote situation?
Yes. And I think it starts with policies, right? We tend to, when we're in a new space, put structure around things. For example, a work from home policy. Well, what does that look like? Do we need to structure our hours? Do we need to have safety in the home working environment or the remote working environment? Of course, all of those things are needed. My suggestion would be to go light. Go as light as possible on structuring policies, and the way that people work when they're not in the office. And this is quite a diversion from where we have been in the past with office hours and meeting times and availability, lunch breaks, etc. Because people tend to thrive when they are empowered to make their own decisions about how, when, and where the work gets done. And this is stretching us to think in these new and different ways, because when we allow people to direct their own work, we create a psychological safety for them to be the best possible version of themselves in their space to get their work done and contribute to something that's meaningful and bigger than themselves. So I think that would be the recommendation when it comes to policies and communication and guidance with people, to go light.
I love that. And I think you also mentioned about the sharpness of our communication and how that has evolved over the last a couple of months where everybody has gone remote. So touch on those thoughts as well and how that the communication has also evolved with this.
Mm-hmm. I think we're finding new ways to communicate with one another, whether it be Zoom or a team chat or text, and trying to figure out what the preference is for certain people, and what the company's guidance and expectation would be. I know a lot of companies, Zoom is easy to use, but then we run into regulatory potentially requirements and security issues.
Right.
The communication, both in video recording, which is what Gary Ridge, our CEO, provides to us at least weekly, a video and a written communication to stay in touch, stay engaged, energize our people, keep them inspired and informed on a very frequent cadence.
That's easier said than done, right?
It is.
I think you also mentioned there are ways to just keep them engaged, keep your employees engaged. You had mentioned messages, tokens of gratitude, trust, and pride. Speak a little bit about that as well.
Mm-hmm. And finding different ways to do that too, developing trust that we normally get with that third dimension of experiencing one another in the round, if you will, replacing that with things like gratitude boards, which are digital. Perhaps take those birthday celebrations from the office space to the home space where you're mailing your colleagues and friends cakes and cards the old-fashioned way, right? Handwritten notes. And then doing pulse check-ins, and not how are you, but taking it a little further than that to say, what are you enjoying out of this experience? What are you struggling with? What have you learned this week? To really peel back the layers and try the best we can to get that deeper third dimensional connection.
I love that. That is so well said. Please tell us about your 3 E's.
The 3 E's: engage, enable, and energize. When we put those 3 E's together in a really meaningful, authentic way, what we tend to see in our workforce is this discretionary effort, which is quite elusive. And with discretionary effort comes engagement. And those two things together, we see not only the individual or the tribe member, as we say at WD40 Company, thrive, but the team thrives and the company overall thrives. Looking for unique ways to execute those 3 E's.
Oh, that's excellent. I love that. So with the performance, how do you measure performance? We talked about the communication piece, and trusting people and treating them as adults, and they will rise. But how do you measure that performance and encourage that performance?
Similarly to policies, the recommendation would be to go light. Focus on those top line performance measures, not the full dashboard. Engage the team member, the individual contributor, in the discussions about what performance looks like when they're working remotely, when they would otherwise be working in an office. Make it a very interactive conversation. And again, focus on the top line, not necessarily the 20 metrics below that, but are we achieving our goals? And again, allow the employee to determine the how, where, and when it gets done.
A lot of companies, Rachelle, do annual reviews. And I know that the WD40 Company does things a little bit differently. Can you talk about that?
We do. We, our coaches, which we describe as our managers, and our tribe members, our employees, we meet quarterly. And the focus of the quarterly performance development conversation, not review, yes, we're looking a little bit retrospectively, but the majority of this conversation is approximately 60 to 80% forward focused. Because while it's important to acknowledge the work done and provide that recognition, we're continually looking forward and being future focused to help our tribe members develop their competencies, identify new skills that they need to hone, providing them information that they need to be successful in their role, understanding what those roadblocks are, eliminating them so that they can be accountable and deliver the performance that we know they want to.
I love that. And the quarterly helps everything stay fresh. You have no one that's waiting for 12 months until their next review for someone to tell them whether or not they're doing a good job over those 12 months.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
And a big part of that conversation, we will always anchor in our values. How not only are we looking forward focused, we're talking about professional development, skill development, but we're talking about how do we live our values? Because that really is a solid foundation and underscores, it helps guide us in the work that we do.
One of my favorite books was written, co-authored by your CEO, Gary Ridge. And it's "Don't just grade my paper, teach me to get an A" was the byline. And I love that because that's in essence what you're doing. You're not just saying, "Hey, Rachelle, you're doing a great job." You're helping Rachelle not only do a great job, but increase that A to an A plus, right?
Absolutely.
So I love
and
that.
Ken Blanchard's theory on that is when he was a professor at university, he gave his class the final examination paper at the beginning of the semester and said, here's what we need to learn together. And so that he was helping them get an A and providing them a clear roadmap forward.
You know, I really enjoy that. And then, so we've talked about performance and engagement and communication. Your fun engagement ideas, we didn't talk about the online Picasso, and I'd love you to bring us back. What is the online Picasso?
Again, it's taking one of those 3D experiences to a 2D experience where we might meet with friends and colleagues for one of those painting classes where you follow along with a canvas and potentially a glass of wine or a different beverage, right? And that we can do them online now. So we can have the materials shipped to employees' homes. We can schedule times in the afternoons and make that sort of a team building experience.
Success, success, success. I have a funny feeling that you have seen a lot of successes from remote work, taking everybody from the office. Now everybody's working from home. Can you share some of those success stories with us?
One that I heard of very recently, and just an incredible way to pivot so quickly, was in our UK team. Our finance and accounting team would normally take about 5 to 6 days to consolidate the European end of month. This month, it took them 3 days.
Oh my goodness.
The support of their IT team and strong communication and planning, they were able to stay focused and productive in their home environments. It was amazing. We
Wow.
recently did a sales training on the digital competencies. We had 78 people on that call with a lot of preparation and research in advance and contribution in a more structured environment, with breakout groups and things like that. We really find that we're doing more with our teams that are working remotely and no longer in the office.
Well, in our last few minutes, Rachelle, do you have any other words of encouragement? There are companies out there that might be struggling right now to communicate, to keep their teams motivated, to monitor that productivity and make sure that it's at its optimum. Any last words of encouragement?
I would suggest to keep your finger on the pulse. Keep those 15 to 10-minute pulse conversations daily or 2 or 3 times a week at the top of your priority list, among many other things I know we're all trying to navigate. In addition to that, be authentic. When things are going well, let's share that with the acknowledgement, engagement, and recognition. And when things are precarious, let's be authentic about that and invite everybody into the problem solving, because we truly are in uncharted territory for many reasons.
Yeah. Rachelle Snook, WD40, thank you so much for joining us today on our podcast. And I know there is more to come from you. We want to thank our audience for joining us on The Higher Revolution. I'm your host, Eve Nasby. Be sure to click on the link below to subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Eve. Stay well, everyone.